Hey everyone, hope everyone's doing good. Just wanted to talk about Liteform ICF foam blocks. Now that I have actually performed a pour with them. So one thing right off the bat, I want to tell anybody that's going to use Liteform, make sure you know what a common seam is and make sure you know when to use them. So the main issue I had with my blocks. So to start the whole story, I guess, I was pouring my footers in the beginning of July, and I was also going to order my foam blocks that same week. So I basically poured my footer and placed the order for my blocks the same week under the assumption that I was going to be getting my foam blocks in 3 or 4 days, a week tops. So the way I ended up with Liteform was I actually was gonna buy everything through Menards and ended up doing that. Didn't end up going through Menards because I couldn't use my rebate. So I ended up just calling Liteform. They recommended a reseller. I went through the reseller, but then when the order was placed, the reseller said they didn't have the information from Liteform that there was any type of delays or anything. So when they placed my order, it ended up being like a 6 to 8 week lead time, they said. So I said, okay, whatever. But I had already, committed to my footer. So it's just been kind of sitting here, in the elements, and I'm kind of dug into a hole here. So I got like erosion problems, stuff like that. And I'm just sitting around waiting. And then that 6 to 8 weeks turned into 12 weeks. So when I got my blocks on my form, it said that I should have had a ship date of September 15th. So the person that I bought my blocks from also placed an order about the same time. And we worked with a representative at Liteform and had it to where my order would ship out first and then his order would ship out the next week. So the date for mine to come, it passed. And then by the time I finally got in touch with the people I bought my blocks from, they were under the assumption I already had them because they had already gotten their blocks. So like I said, the label on my block said it shipped September 15th, but they didn't actually in reality ship that date. So they were sitting somewhere I don't to this day know where. And the only reason I mentioned that, because I don't know if it had anything to do with any of my other issues that I had. So my first issue was that I didn't start in the corners and then work my way in to a common seam. So did I ask about this before I did this, or did I just do this on my own? Absolutely, I did this. I mentioned it to Liteform, and I also mentioned it to the resellers. And basically the way I phrased it when I said it to them is that I designed my whole house around these blocks and how, the size of them, so that way I wouldn't have to make any, as few cuts as possible. And I was never told that wasn't, possible. So what ended up happening, since I didn't do that, you can see right where that sun line is, there's a common seam that ends up starting in the second row on this side. And then over here on this side, same thing in the second row. Now this is only on the inside is it allowed to start on the second row. On the outside, it actually wasn't able to because I already had weatherproofing on it. So after I made the common seam, things were mostly okay, except for over here I started getting an issue, right here. So once I got to my third row, then all of a sudden this common seam started out of nowhere. So then I had to start putting that common seam in. When I got to my fourth row, this is actually a junction, but then the one above it started another one. So first thing you would think is this wall is flaring out. Like that could be the only explanation. And I measured the lengths of each wall on the top and bottom. They're the same on both walls, and it's square on the bottom and it's square on the top. So it really leads me to the assumption that it has to be because of the imperfections in the block that it does this. So another thing I noticed, if you look up here, you can see a crack. And whenever you be putting the blocks in, that would obviously concern you. And I'll kind of get up here closer and show you. Like that might concern you, what, you know, concrete's gonna leak out of there. But when you look at it from the inside, it would be perfectly tight. So it was almost as if the block was slightly deformed. So while I was stacking, every once in a while you would have a problem trying to get a block in. And I'm trying to find one of the exact blocks because they actually, a lot of times, have a slightly different texture to them. I don't know if that actually has anything to do with it. And it also may be behind the ledger as well. But somewhere in here, I had a couple blocks. I just couldn't seem to get fit in. I just jammed them in there. Was just kind of like fed up, just jammed them in there. Didn't think too much about it and continued on. And then there, same thing over here. There was, I just believe it was one block over here that ended up causing an extra common seam towards the top. But anyways, I would have just wrote this up to, you know, me not doing something right since it was the first time I've ever done this. But like I said, the corners stayed level. They didn't go out of square. Like you really don't have a whole bunch of concrete coming in through these cracks. So that does show there's some imperfection in the blocks. But then the main thing is I ended up, after I started common seams and I called them, and then I started having more problems and called them again. They said, well, if you think there's problems with the blocks, you know, check them out. You know, so I started checking them out more carefully. And when I got, I think it was about, I was on my 5th or 6th row when I really started paying more attention to each individual block, because I was spot checking blocks. I was taking them out, measuring them, and I was always getting blocks that were pretty dang close. So I never really had the thought at the time that it was the blocks would have been deformed. I just thought it was something maybe I was doing wrong, and they just weren't fitting quite right. But then when I was in the 5th or 6th row, I had this block that would not fit, and I started looking at it, and it was just weird because the studs would line up and then all of a sudden they wouldn't. And it was almost like the block was deformed. So I sat it down, I measured it. It's actually this block right here, the full one that's on the bottom, not the little one on top. But if you can see, the foam to me looks a little more spaced out. Like you can see like the little beads of foam a little more, like it's not as smooth on this block. But the thing that's wrong, and the reason why I never use this block, is because on just one side, it's a 1/2 inch off. So it is physically impossible to even use that block because it would have busted any seam that I put on there with it. It just would have created a common seam. And see, I get this, I mean, this block's been sitting here, and yes, you know, so a couple tabs were lost, and honestly, it doesn't look horrible as far as the tabs are concerned, but a lot of the things I see are, I don't know if you can see this, but this block flares, it curves, and that's where you get that 1/2 inch off. Like you can't use that. And then sometimes these tabs, especially like maybe on the outside, like if you push down hard enough on this, it kind of wants to mushroom out. And then when you want to stack another block on it, it wants to pop it back up. So I don't know if the blocks were sitting somewhere and then, you know, getting rustled around, because they were soaking wet when I got them on a trailer. They literally, the truck driver drove straight through from where they actually were at to me. And so it didn't, you know, obviously rain inside the trailer while they were coming to me, but when I got them, they were like soaked. And some of the pallets were kind of, they looked like they maybe were getting rocked back and forth in the wind, but I have no idea. Like I said, they never did really tell me what the reason was for my delay and why it said it shipped on the 15th, but it really didn't when it was supposed to. But one of the problems we had is the rep that we were in contact with actually left the company. So I don't know if just nobody was watching it or if it just slipped through the cracks or what. But so my impression with Liteform is it's not bad. Like, I still think overall it worked out okay, but it was a little more hassle than I thought. Like, I thought it would be easier to pop these blocks in, and don't get me wrong, a lot of the times they do pop in, but you get a lot of this. Like, and this, I mean, if we look at this, we can see a lot of times it's not something that was done wrong, it's a deformity in the block. Like, you can see the curves in the blocks, so they're not perfect. Like, you would think this gap up here, you know, where just a little bit of concrete came out, you would think up through here a lot more concrete would have came out, but it didn't. And it's because it's not because that block isn't pushed down the way, it's because I think part of it's because maybe the pieces, the knobs at the top are flared out a little bit, but also I just think that they kind of wave a little bit. So I don't know if that's normal. This is the first time I've done it. This is like a do-it-yourself type situation where I just did, you know, my best research following their instructions, and then trying, you know, I even tried to, like I said, design my whole house around their blocks so that I wouldn't have to make cuts. And I didn't just kind of, you know, do that on my own. I did ask about it. So, and the weird thing is, so here's the weird thing about it. So yeah, I understand every block's not perfect, but that, I mean, to me, that just kind of creates random common seams all over the place, because if you get a run of blocks that aren't, say, perfect, and you don't catch it, like say you get 3 in a row that are 1/16 inch short, all of a sudden now you've just created a common seam, because, you know, 3/16, it's going to be hard to get the seam onto that next one. So I don't know if it's normal to have these little differences and end up causing all these extra common seams. I'm still awaiting a couple of things. One, I asked if it's normal to have that type of damage to it. I kind of asked for a discount, so let's see where that goes. And then second, I asked how they want me to proceed with my second floor, because on one wall I got 3 common seams within, you know, like 8 or 10 feet. And on the other wall, I got 2 common seams within like maybe, you know, 16 feet. And I don't know if I should just keep going with those and just keep going up, if it's square, if it's level. You know, it's just a form. In the end, it's just a foam form. So it really doesn't matter. I mean, it did what it was supposed to do. It's full of concrete, and it held, and it stayed straight. So I just think that I am due like a little bit of credit, because I feel like it should have been a little easier than what it was. And I also feel like somebody should have kind of communicated with me better on my lead time, so I wouldn't have had as much stress about it. And I know everybody's waiting on things, but when you get told something and then you have no indication that it's something else, you know, that's one thing. And then, you know, being told, you know, that it's going to be longer than what you thought it was because of certain reasons, that's another thing. But I feel like the communication could have been better. So overall, I really don't know how to grade it yet. I guess I'll see where the process goes with them. I mean, in the end, it did do what it was supposed to. But like, if I was building another house, would I use Liteform again, or would I check out some other blocks? I don't know. I guess I'll let everyone know. But I did check the floors. I went across it, just like, you know, put a level on it in random spots, and it was almost, I mean, I didn't find anything that wasn't level. Everything was level. There's definitely, when strong back is just something that runs, you know, this way with the trusses, if anybody doesn't know, and it just kind of tightens everything up, and it also makes all the trusses stay at the same height, so your floor is level. So that's the next thing I need to do up there, and then I'm actually going to start taking out all these braces and everything so that I can actually just let it hang there like it's supposed to. It's been over a week now since the pour, so I'll keep everybody posted, and I'll probably be switching gears soon and doing some sawmilling, so I'll let everyone know if I start doing that again too. But until then, everyone, good luck on what you're working on, and have a good day.